Want more deal flow from LinkedIn? Get the LinkedIn Deal Flow System, the ultimate LinkedIn training for unstoppable acquisition growth. Get it at dealflowsystem.net. Welcome to the Top M&A Entrepreneurs. My guest today is Marshall Doyle. Marshall Doyle is actually a student of Epic, the Rollins Group. He's done about 20 deals. He runs a company called CalCert. He was also in the Air Force, which I was too. So welcome to the show, Marshall. How are you?
Awesome. Welcome, John. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our chat.
Yeah. So let's go back. How did you start? I mean, where was the very first acquisition, and was it before Epic or Epic was the inspiration?
Yeah, no, it was long before Epic. In fact, when I met Roland, met him at a speaking event in San Diego, and he described his process, and I thought, I've been doing that. Not really on that extent, but back in 98, that's 1998 for you young people. I bought my first company. I bought CalCert, and CalCert was a one-person company, a one-employee company with two owners, and they wanted to retire. And friend of a friend, kind of a connection. And I did some calibration in the Air Force. And so I was introduced. We put a deal together in June of 99. I bought the company from him after working for him for 8 months. First one, I mortgaged my house for the down payment. And then he carried a note for 10 years.
10 years. So he definitely trusted you. And this was off market, right? I mean, it wasn't
off market. Yeah, it was just a small company. He had actually been larger, had a shareholder dispute with family and all the stuff earlier before me. And the company was kind of, well, in his words, he was going to bury it before his family member, which was his son, would get it. So,
ooh, ouch.
Yeah, and it's pretty ugly, still pretty ugly actually between them two. So, but that was my first business, and still have that business running. So let me silence my phone there. It was my first move into the entrepreneurial world. I was operations manager in a property management company before that. And I grew that company. We were around 40 employees. When I left 8 years later, we were 140 employees. And I'd like to think I had a little something to do with that as their operations manager.
Yeah.
The old carrot on the stick was out there, but never really was coming to fruition. So,
well, what was going through your mind, going from a W-2 to owning it? I mean, what did you want to own your own company? Like put your money where your mouth is, or somebody?
Well, I've always been kind of self-driven. I'm one of those guys that can do anything, fix anything, at least somewhat decently. So always been one of those guys. I never really had an aspiration to be a business owner. I grew up very poor. The oldest boy of 9 kids. My dad was in the Army, and then you were in the Air Force. You know what they pay, right? So
yeah, I got laughed at one time when I showed my check to somebody.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but the job I was at, I was doing really well. I was paid pretty well, but it was a pressure cooker. It was terrible. And the thing I didn't like about it is that although I was responsible for everything, I wasn't empowered to make decisions on everything. And so I think that's what I was really looking for. I was in this pressure cooker, so anything looked good to me back then. So I left, and I remember my wife and I talking about, what we needed to do to prepare for this. And so I got a second mortgage on my house. We sold my wife's car to get off from her the car payment, bought her this piece of junk, little Chevy Corsica for cash, and just got ourselves prepared, for that entrepreneurial world, knowing that we would probably need to put more money into the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but I was excited about being in control.
How integral was your wife in the decision making? I mean, you said, "Hey, I want to buy this business." Obviously, she didn't go, "You're crazy. That's not happening."
No, actually, she didn't. Funny. You mentioned that. My wife's an accountant.
Geez, that's helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, she worked for the same company as their accounting manager, and so she stayed there while after I left, and I gave them 6 or 8 weeks notice just to help them out. And And when we looked at the deal, in the midst of all of this, it was kind of a verbal deal, come to work for me, and then you can buy it a year from now. These are the terms. This is what we'll do. It's kind of a handshake deal. And we're 4 or 5 months in, and he had got an offer from one of our customers to buy it. And he said, you're gonna have to buy it from Marshall. I have a deal with Marshall, which is awesome, right? He's honorable.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. How
Yeah.
grateful do you feel knowing you got involved with somebody like that, that honored that with his word?
It's, I still get a little tingly inside from that a little bit. I mean, just saying it, because the guy was a man of his word, and I still am friends with him today. He's 85 years old, so, and lives in Deming, New Mexico. So, and so, he said, hey, if you want to buy it, you're gonna have to buy it from Marshall. And this was like a $400 million company that wanted to buy it out.
Yeah, they could just write the check tomorrow and
And
absorb it. Yeah.
so at the time, I was going to get 25% more than we had agreed to buy it for. They were going to pay me 25% of that more and pay me a nice salary to run it. And my wife sat across the table. I remember it was at Denny's of all places, but we were sitting at Denny's after we met with our attorney. And I'm like, well, what do you think about this? And I said, I got this job offer. They want to buy the company. I can run it. And she said, why did you want to do this to begin with? And I said, well, I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. I want to be my own person and develop something for myself. She said, why would you take this job? Because it'd just be another job. And so we did it.
A couple with one for the wife of putting what's important.
Yeah, it was really cool. She really supported me really well in there. And so, and people think, I'm going to go into business, I'm going to be rich, or I'm going to make a lot of money or whatever, but it doesn't work for most of us. It doesn't work for most people out there. And so, we went through our struggles. I mean, we went through price wars with competitors. We went through lots of stuff, nearing bankruptcy, nearing divorce, actually. And it was pretty ugly the first few years. By 2001, it was tough. And so that's when I decided that I needed to do something different, because I had a competitor who was sucking the prices down in our territory. We were in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Alaska, and Hawaii. That was our territory for the most part. And pricing was going down and down and down. It was a race to the bottom. And so I'm like, how can I get out from underneath this guy? And so I had made friends with another calibrator in Minnesota at a training conference for a manufacturer. And in 2005, I bought his company.
You bought your competitor.
Well, he wasn't really a competitor. It was kind of a territorial thing. We crossed over a little bit in Wyoming, but I bought another company outside of the territory of the competitor that was killing me.
Oh, so it was like a manufacturer and you were assigned territories, sort of?
Sort of, yeah. It was kind of a gentleman's territory back then, even though there was really no real contracts. Everybody kind of had their own spot, And of course, with, the internet, 1999, AOL was coming online and internet was coming online, Y2K. And so we just started spreading out and driving further and doing more. And so I bought this second guy out, terms deal also.
How did that conversation go? I mean, at some point you realized, I can't beat them on price. I can't do them. And then there was somebody said in your head, or your wife's again said, well, why not just buy them?
Well, it wasn't, just to be clear, I didn't buy out the competitor.
Oh,
I bought another guy in a different territory to stand out from underneath this other guy. And so that's how I got into the Midwest in calibration. And I had gotten to know this guy. We had, his name was Bill, and we had like exchange customers, like helped each other out, with that gentleman's agreement, like, hey, this is my annual customer, but he's in a jam, something broke, you got to have it fixed. And calibration is a reoccurring thing almost every year.
Yeah. What kind of machines are they again?
Mostly like concrete brake machines they use for braking concrete cylinders for testing concrete strength, asphalt strength, and then all the other peripheral equipment there. And so, that other acquisition in 2005, we closed that deal. And I got one employee out of it, and the husband and wife retired. And then we hired another employee in that area. And then my office, I think at that time we had grown CalCert by, I think we were at about 12 employees at this point. So we were growing.
Yeah.
We're broke, but we were growing. So,
Hey, let me ask you about that.
Mhm.
How the conversation started. Were you putting seeds out there that to the seller? Hey, if you're ever interested in selling, let me
I
know.
was
Was
actually.
it did they start it? Yeah.
No, well, in this world, there's factory training, and so the factory guys are about 35 companies in this niche in the U.S. that work for this one particular factory as vendors or as warranty guys. And so we went to the training back in Minnesota or Pennsylvania, and you meet all these people in the training, and then you go to the bar afterwards, right? So
Yeah.
we went to the bar afterwards, and me and another guy, a guy named Lane, who's in Pennsylvania. I was 30 years old, and we're looking around the room and we're like, man, these guys are like old, like they're like 50 something at least. Right? I'm 55 now, so they're like old, and look at all the gray hair. This industry is going to bust open. Someone's going to need to be able to take this over. And so we kind of jokingly said, hey, I'm in Oregon, you're in Pennsylvania. I'll start heading east, you start heading west, and we'll take over the country. And so that's kind of what the mindset was a little bit. And, almost in a joking way, and as I was talking to these guys, they're like, yeah, I need to hang this up someday or whatever. I'm like, hey, I bought out the owner of CalCert. Let's talk. When you're ready to exit, let's talk. And so that's how it started. And then,
Yeah. And did the other guy started taking over that part of his territory with that conversation, or?
The other guy was growing organically, staying in the territory we were in, my main competitor. I think and he still has his company. He's still a competitor. He's got like 15 employees. And in my calibration company, I have close to 60 employees.
Yeah.
And so he could have grown just as easily as I did. But so in 2005, I got the second one. And then in 2007.
Let me ask you about that,
Yep.
The second one. And what kind of deal terms was that again with? It was seller
Okay,
financing,
so that's a good story, actually. This one was, we did, it's kind of funny. I mean, I was really transparent with them. And I said, look, guys, I'm carrying some overhead. And at this point, my wife had joined the company and my brother had joined the company, and not as owners, but as workers. And of course, my wife, they own everything, right? So, but
it's a community property state,
right? Exactly. So, but at this point, I didn't have cash. I mean, I was still upside down on payables and stuff. I was still, just barely making my profit was starting to get dialed in because I was learning, what I needed to do there. I engaged with the small business development centers, SBDC centers, and they were business coaching me and helping me kind of figure out, the operation.
Yeah, this is 7 years later after your first acquisition.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so when we bought that company, they did 8-year financing, and they financed 100%. And they left $10,000 in the bank for operating.
Wow. Why did they take that deal? What advantage was it to them?
I think, well, number one, the guy was in his 70s, so he was ready.
Yeah.
And him and his wife, she was a little younger, but they were ready and motivated. Like Roland always talked about motivated sellers, right?
Right.
They were motivated.
Was he not motivated by money, seeing a big number in his checking account, or just having the bills paid?
He had done well his whole career.
Yeah.
And he'd run pretty lean, so he had done well. His wife was handling the financial part of it. He was like just a calibrator, and that's what he did. And so their number one thing they were after was someone to take care of their customers.
Oh, I love that.
That's what they wanted. They want someone to take care of their customers. And we knew each other for 5 years, and we'd cover each other once in a while. We talk. I talked to his wife constantly. We have what we call windshield time because we're driving. And so I'd call her and we'd talk for like 2 hours. And she's like, you're going to buy our company someday. And I said, okay, when I'm ready. And finally they said, look, we're ready. And I said, I'm not ready. Like I haven't dug out of the hole that I started in, I don't have the cash, but I can do the cash flow and we can manage the guys. And so we're really transparent with the conversation, really open and honest about the whole scenario. And they put a deal together that I could do.
why do you think your transparency turned into advantage? I mean, your honesty,
Trust.
your ethics.
It was trust. Yeah, we built trust over the years.
Did you think they put you through some kind of ethical test, maybe that you didn't know of, or how you treated your customers? Maybe they called your customers or something, and it was like, how did he do business? Because
Well, I don't think they had any like strategic plan for that. I think it just happened naturally. And because we, sometimes would help cover each other's customers, we always had good feedback. And I would always say, hey, you want me to cover this emergency? You want them back next year during the routine calibrations? And sometimes they'd say, yeah, we want them back. Sometimes say, no, it's out of cycle. We can't get there. You can take them. And so we had this real open, honest, integrity-based conversation and agreement. And we really became friends. And that was a big part of it. And their motivation was customers. And what I found out later is that that's almost always their motivation, was taking care of the customers. And then if they had employees, they wanted their employees taken care of.
Yeah.
So that which leads me to the next one that I did, which was in 2007 or 8. I can't remember when the disaster of the Great Recession started, but it was in the midst of all that. And this guy had sold his company to a different company. They were in due diligence, and they had docs getting developed and everything else, and then the crash happened.
It's same company, type of company.
Same type of company. These guys happen to be here in Portland, where I'm at. Did a different thing. They did temperature calibration, which we kind of did, but not a lot. And he had one employee, and then him and his wife did their books and stuff. And so their deal fell through because of the recession. And he knew one of my employees, and I knew of him, but I never really talked to him. And my employee said, you should talk to Marshall. And he came to me and said, look, I want to retire. I'm 70 something. I could taste it. It was so close. I could taste it. And these guys pulled out. And so I got his financials. I got all that stuff, analyzed them. And at this point, I'm still using the business coach from the SBDC, which is an accountant. They're helping me figure it out.
Yeah.
So I came back to him and I said, because he told me what they were going to sell it for at first. And I'm like, I can't, you've lost 40% of your business. Like, I can't buy it for that. He's like, what can you buy it for? And so I told him, and he said, I'll take it. And I said, it's got to be terms. And so I gave him 10,000 down, which essentially was designed to pay his attorney's fees from the failed deal.
Yeah.
Because he had to pay his attorney's fees for a failed deal.
Right.
And we used the documents that the other buyer, that the
exact same documents.
Yeah, we used the same documents. We just adjusted them and used them and changed the pricing. So, and then we got one employee with that one, and we had the infrastructure to manage the overhead side of it.
Yeah.
So that's when we started to scale.
So was there any point you're realizing this stuff is starting to happen to me? What's the end game? Because you fast forward to 2021, 22, and you're talking to Roland, and goes, the end game is, a higher multiple because you're larger. Was there anything coming in? Yeah.
That was kind of in my head a little bit. It was really more about, for me personally, it was really more about getting me off the road, because I was a technician, and it was threatening my marriage and threatening my relationship with my kids. And so I was trying to grow enough to get enough income that I could be in the office and just do sales and do scheduling and do those kinds of things and not travel.
Yeah.
And so it was never about money. It's still not about money, honestly. But we were able to, build a pretty good portfolio of clients and client base. And then, the industry changed a little bit. In 1999, they published a document called ISO 17025. It's a quality assurance accreditation. And by 2002, 2003, the state agencies, the federal agencies were starting to require this accreditation. And so I needed to get it in order to move forward. But the other thing that it did is companies that we were doing like a concrete machine for, all of a sudden they needed everything else done too.
Oh, yeah.
Like their ovens and their scales and their thermometers and their torque wrenches and all that stuff.
Yeah, let me, before you jump into that, let me ask you, when you said it's not about money, is there another word that you'd use that it's about? And how do you stop the word money from keep creeping in? You know, how sometimes you're patient,
Yeah.
you get impatient by seeing something else, and you have to let that keep those from creeping in like weeds in your garden.
Well, I mean, it started out, I wanted to create stability for my family.
Yeah,
And of course, money does give you some stability, right? So,
yeah, it's freedom.
but
right.
recurring income gives you stability in money. And so when money gives you a little stability, well, money was really not there. I never really wanted to be rich. We grew up so poor. Anything we did, was better, right? So
Was new territory.
yeah, it was
Completely new.
pretty
My
easy.
dad was, never graduated high school. Same thing. right?
Yeah, I mean, I barely graduated from high school, and I went straight in the Air Force when I was junior in high school. So
Wow.
I mean, I graduated, but then I went on and delayed enlistment. But the money thing for me is, someone told me once, if you focus on money, you'll never have it.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
focus
I've heard
on helping
that many
people,
times. Yeah,
you'll have
because
money.
it's just energy. You have to focus on others.
Just energy. And
Yeah.
now I'm just kind of addicted to the whole game. I like the whole game of it. And so most of the companies that I bought were small 1-2 person companies that could blend right into CalCert.
Right. You're just basically buying maybe an employee and a customer list.
Yep. Some equipment, an employee or two, customer list. I was always looking for maybe they've got like some service that's so proprietary we can, own that market, or
Have a higher profit margin.
or some software that's going to make everything, way more profitable or
Yeah.
something like that. And so I've always just continually looking for improvement. And although we still acquire smaller companies as part of our strategy, we acquire bigger companies now too. And so, but all of them I'm doing what I've learned, Roland, and of course, Roland's program is really kind of on steroids compared to what I was doing. But I was doing the same thing. I was like, just being transparent, saying, look, I don't have the cash for this, but I can pay you payments because I can do the cash flow of it.
Yeah.
So I was using it as marketing. And so we grew the company by 2009, we had done 3 acquisitions, and we grew the company by about 65%.
Yeah. And what was next after that?
Let's see.
Well, let's kind of jump to where maybe there's an epiphany. I need to buy a bigger company, or I need to go to a different industry. What would happen there?
Well, like most entrepreneurs, I'm ADD or ADHD, right?
Yeah.
So I always like something new and exciting. And so I was always jumping around to different things. And I think this roll up was giving me that ability to feed that a little bit. And so learning new things for us, it was growing the territory, was scaling it. But while we were growing the territory, we were growing the services too. And so we've got like
back to that ISO requirement.
Because of the ISO thing, when we started out with like 6 services, we've got like 380 some services now.
Wow.
In the calibration business itself. So it's and we're in 42 states.
Whoa.
So, I mean, we've grown, a little bit. And when I met Roland, I guess maybe almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah. So this is way before Epic. What was this about?
It was way before Epic. And so I met Roland, in 2005. He spoke at an event with Allison Maslin. I don't know if you've heard of Allison Maslin. It's Pinnacle Global Network is the name of her company. She's out of San Diego, and she's a coaching group. It's a coaching group, coaching, masterminding, that kind of stuff. And so I was at one of her events. I had become a member of one of her coaching groups, and was at an event when he spoke, and I'm like,
I got to talk to the guy.
This is what I'm doing. And one of the things when you go to events, you probably go to some events before COVID, one of the things I always did is I always watched the speakers, how they entered the stage and how they exit the stage. So once I figured that out, I'd always sit where they were exiting. So that if they were a great speaker, I'd get a chance to exchange cards or meet with them or something. And so I did that with Roland. He was up there, and I read a little bit about him, but that was my introduction to him. And I sat over to the left side of the stage, which is where she was having everybody go down. And when he came out, of course, speaker's over and they're going to break, right? And so he comes down, and I like stopped him and I said, I need to talk to you. And he's like, what's up? I said, I've been doing what you're doing on a much smaller scale, and I want to learn more from you. How do I do that? And because these events, they won't let him sell anything. And he wasn't doing Epic then. He wasn't doing any of that stuff. And so, and then we exchanged a couple of emails, and then kind of nothing for a while. And then, of course, I was following his podcast, Business Lunch.
Yep, Business Lunch,
And,
330 something.
Yeah. And so
Yes.
anyway, so I kind of got to know him, and or not know him, but know of him and all that. And then he started Epic during the pandemic. And by this time in Epic, I'd already bought 14 companies.
These are all just the kind of the normal
Before I knew
person,
Roland, yeah.
roll up, yeah.
But well, some were small, some were big. Biggest one I ever bought was a 14 employee company before I met Roland.
And let me ask you about that. Did you have a set checklist or system of what happens when you acquire now after your 14th? This needs to happen. This needs to happen.
Yeah, I've got it's loose because I'm kind of a visionary guy, so it's loose. And everything has the basics that you need. So I have that down. But the fine tuning of it, I just have the mind for it. So let's go through it. I just signed papers on Friday for another acquisition.
Yeah.
And
How
I'm
big
just
was that?
going-
How many people in revenue?
That was a $1.3 million acquisition. And we acquired, I think, 4 employees. But as a product sales company, so don't love those numbers. They're not huge because it's products, right? So,
Yeah.
but
In
So I'm
your
going-
industry, it's an
yeah, they're in my industry.
Yeah.
They don't do calibration. They do instrument sales, but these are instruments that need to be calibrated.
yeah.
And they actually would sub some things to us, and we would buy some instruments from them.
Well,
And
you're
yeah.
going to be calibrating the instruments you sell, which should help your product margin supply.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the owner there, 2 owners, husband and wife. The husband's a little bit older than the wife. She's the sales engine. She's like the rock star salesperson. And so she's coming on as our sales manager.
Oh,
And
wow.
we had lost the sales manager just almost a year ago, and I stepped back into that role a little bit. We have 5 people on our sales team, and our sales manager took a job as a GM at one of our vendors. No surprise, we still get a lot of sales from him because he's GM for one of our vendors, but he's not on our salary anymore. So, but yeah, so when I go through the checklist, I've made a checklist over the years, and I actually developed a process to help what I call micro businesses sell. And so my daughter and I started a company called Small Business Coaching, LLC. That business, this is before the pandemic, and that was designed to help like what Roland's doing, but help people buy businesses like what Roland's doing, but on a much smaller scale. Like, buying like the local barbershop or, things like that. Solopreneur kind of businesses.
Yeah.
And because I had bought a lot of those guys out, and when I bought them out, they had no clue how to exit or no clue how to set the company up for sale. Some
Yeah.
of
Like,
them were
what do you mean? I'm an independent now. I'm a W-2. What's the,
Yeah, I was just, they had no idea how to do it. So I set up this business coaching thing with my daughter, where we coach people on how to buy their first business or how to buy existing businesses as a roll-up strategy. Like, for example, a nail salon, right? You buy a nail salon, then instead of like starting a new one on the other side of town, buy another nail salon, and then buy another nail salon.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had that figured out and started coaching on that. And then pandemic, then we decided, okay, let's help them sell too. like, let's help these solopreneurs that have 3 or 4 employees maybe want to sell. So we
This is
started
completely
that.
independent of Epic, right? This is,
Oh yeah, this is before Epic even started.
yeah,
And so we were setting this up, my daughter and I, and we were building an online course for it.
yeah.
It was going to be a hybrid online course, kind of done with you kind of a thing. And at this time, I was stepping away from CalCert a little bit because I have a team that's running it now. You know, I've got a 6-person leadership team. They're running it now. I meet with them once a week for 90 minutes. And so I don't get involved other than the acquisition stuff. And so I was bored, right? So I needed to do this other stuff. But so we started that coaching business. And then when the pandemic hit, well, that's no time to sell, right? That's no time to be in a panic and sell. So we didn't really want to coach our
Well,
clients.
that's not a lot of people feel. The first thing they do is, I mean, I got to get out.
Right, exactly. But for a strategic seller, that's not the best time to sell, right? And so I didn't want to get people on fire sales and help them fire sell their company. That's not.
Did you feel ethically bad about that, or did you? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I didn't. That's not the right thing to do. I want to see them get top value for the company. So
Right.
and so it started out with a client we were coaching that had a welder repair company and 5 employees, been in business. It was his dad's business before him, been in business since 1956. And he was 2nd generation owner and in his 70s. And he was scared of the pandemic. His wife's health was challenging. And so he was scared of the pandemic. And I was coaching him to get his company ready to sell before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And then
And
it hit.
did you charged him, or how did that work?
Oh yeah, they paid me a monthly fee to
Yeah.
coach them. And I mean, I'm charging, I think for that level of client, if you did a time thing, I charge about $7.50 an hour.
Yeah.
But you know, most of what I had already developed. So we could get a lot of things done in an hour.
Yeah. It's just him executing on what's right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so we were doing price strategies. We were getting his margins right. We're getting his book straight. We're getting his marketing straight. We're getting all the things you need to look at on a business. To
Yeah.
get it
Who would
straight.
want to take over a 2nd generation where the second owner is 70 plus welding repair business? I love repair business because I love the way the beads look and the
Yeah.
oil slick look, but finding somebody to step in that role.
Well, as it turns out, I would.
You did.
'Cause
Okay.
I bought the company.
I did not set you up for that question.
Yes, you did. You didn't know you were setting me up, but you did. My daughter's like, why don't we buy it? I'm like, really? Now, CalCert, we calibrate welders. So we had in the coaching, we kind of learned that they, we had some shared customers and some other stuff. And this guy, he kind of owns the niche in the Portland market.
Yeah.
And part of the reason he owns the niche because it's very difficult to make money doing that because they're rebuilding torches and regulators. Labor is your biggest burden. And then you're fighting, like knockoff products that are being made overseas for cheaper than it costs to fix the one you have. And so, you don't get the quality you need, but so we looked at it and said, I think we can spruce this up. He needed to move out of his family home. They were working out of a garage with a grandfathered clause for the county. So he could work there. Because of the pandemic, my admin staff had moved to their home. And so I had space in my building. So I'm like, well, okay, we'll buy them out. We'll move them into this space. We'll tear the carpeting out, which turned out being more expensive than I thought it was going to be, but we'll tear the carpeting out, expose the concrete floors again.
Because that's curious that she was like, wait a minute, why do they have carpet on a welding place?
No, this is calibration. I took office
the
space.
calibration. Oh, okay.
I took industrial space and turned it into office space for CalCert. And then when my staff went home, I turned it back into industrial space for the welding company.
Oh, okay.
And I moved them. I moved into my building. And then I got introduced to another guy who did the electric welding repair stuff, who was somebody we referred to because we didn't do electrical welders. We did gas, what they call gas apparatus. And I met him, and the owner of the welder company that I bought said he wants to get out. And so I met with him, and he's like, I'm great at fixing welders. I just suck at being in business, and I'm tired of doing this alone. I don't want to do it. I'm like, you want to just close your business down and come to work for us? He's like, yeah. So we did an asset, evaluation of what he had. And he had a lot of customers, a lot of backlog, a lot of equipment, a truck, a couple trucks.
Was he profitable?
Not really, but partly he wasn't profitable because the system sucked. I mean,
He just didn't know.
he just didn't know how to do it. He was spending money on things, he wasn't being irresponsible, but he was just didn't know how to manage the finances of cash flow, and his pricing was too low. His turnarounds were terrible. There was lots of
Yeah, that's the danger of working in the business. You can't see above it where
Yep.
the level.
So I said, look, I don't work in businesses. In fact, I'm not even, and I love this from Roland. I'm not on the org chart of any of my businesses.
Yeah, I love that.
And I told him that. I said, I'm not on the org chart. I don't operate within the business. I operate above the business. We figure out the strategies and then you guys execute them.
Yeah.
And we'll bring in some of my other team to execute them, like my executive assistant, Sky, who's scheduled with you. She does a little bit of that execution stuff, process evaluation and those things. My daughter, does that as well. So my daughter's the CEO of the welder company now. And anyway, we exchanged the guy for a little bit of minority share in exchange for his assets. Came in, now he's our service manager.
So he got, you evaluated his assets purchase agreement, and you said, hey, it's worth X amount of dollars. But
Yep.
we didn't give you cash for that.
Nope.
We're just going to exchange it for a
15% of the surviving company. Yep.
surviving company.
Yep.
Okay.
And
How much of this, let me go back to this, because I had an interview with another guy where, in the age of the internet, everybody wants to do this Zoom call. How much was this face-to-face negotiation versus over the phone? Or
with him, it was mostly face-to-face because he's here in town.
yeah.
Yeah. So, it was, and honestly, it wasn't even that much because, back to what Roland talks about, he was super motivated.
Yeah,
He
super.
wanted to be out. And then after we took it over, we realized that his cash was imploding on him. And so we did end up feeding it a little bit of cash to get some things set up. We had to set up all the electrical systems to do the testing in our building.
Did you subtract any expenses? Just cut stuff out? We don't need this. We don't need that.
Yeah. We went through each category and figured it all out. And we actually took over operating of his entity, which is an LLC, and did the closeout for him. That was part of the deal. Like, we'll do the closeout because that's what he was having trouble with.
What do you mean close out?
So we merged his operations into our existing company.
Yeah.
His LLC needs to be no more, needs to dissolve, right? So we worked on the dissolution of it. We worked with our CPA.
So you filed with the state and everything to dissolve.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite done yet, but they're doing the taxes right now. But we basically balanced out the assets and the liabilities. We balanced out the cash. We did fees back and forth, and we basically got it to his tax liabilities super low at the end because he was profitable that last year. And so we wanted to get his tax burden, lowered. In the meantime, we'd invested a whole bunch to bring him in on the other side, remodeling the building, putting electrical in. So we had some expenses. So we actually dipped into a negative profit for the other company, and got him to a zero. Because
let me ask you about that. So you didn't ask kind of an exchange for his assets for his assets. Was there a tax bill for him?
Small tax bill.
Now that
small tax bill, not much.
Not much.
Like $3,000.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it was, and my daughter, who also does accounting, she kind of got it all figured out, working with our CPA and getting that figured out. So, and the thing is, because we were doing all of that and we were handling customer interactions, I wasn't doing any of it, but my daughter and my assistant and our accounting team was handling that stuff. He was able to start fixing welders. What do you know? He had 80 welders backlog that needed to be fixed that he couldn't get to because it was too busy.
And let me guess, they were a really profitable project.
Oh yeah. So
because he wasn't able to get to that business, and now that was clean from his plate.
Yeah, he was dealing with like credit card processing, or dealing with like, the service software. He used a software called Promax or something Promax. It's like a CRM kind of thing.
Yeah, I know who Promax is. Yeah.
And anyway, and so he was too busy doing all this inertial stuff that he wasn't fixing equipment. It's like, dude,
It's like,
your job,
what
fix
rings
stuff.
your bell? What rings the bell here, which is bringing in profits? And it's not talking to credit card companies.
Nope,
Yeah.
not. So we let our team handle that, and he started being profitable. The other thing is he had 2 employees that were working for him that were dogs. He was letting them get away with murder. He was like, one of them was his son. and I'm like, look, man, we got to deal with your son. He goes, I know. And I said, it's just not going to work. And he's like, I know. And so the 2 employees that he had working for him they don't work for us.
Did you fire them or did he fire them? So you got to go.
Actually, my daughter fired him. So one of them quit.
I got to tell you, what's going. Your daughter came into this picture and she's just loving this environment you created.
Yeah, she's a mini me for sure. Get this, man. She's 32 years old. She's got 3 babies under the age of 4. She's running 2 businesses. Technically 3 businesses: the coaching business, the welding business, and then she's partners with my son and his business. We own a company called The Nerd Stuff, and it's a computer IT company.
Yeah.
And the kickoff for that business was a side gig for years with my son. The kickoff for that business was we bought a small computer repair store in Springfield, Oregon. As a kickoff, they had 4 employees, and so we've grown that. We're looking at 2 acquisitions now to grow that, to expand into Bend and somewhere on the coast, and 3 technically, and 1 in Tacoma, Washington. So I'm going to take the model I did with CalCert. We're going to do it with the IT company, and we're going to do it with the welder company. Same model. We're just going to expand.
Does it make sense when you look at this and goes, well, what do I need to grow to get a higher multiple to some eventual exit or acquisition or whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, CalCert's already achieved that. I mean, CalCert's multiple could be pretty good if I was ready to sell now, but you got to get it over $1 million in EBITDA, right? So,
right.
And
Yeah.
so the other 2, they're not there yet, but they'll get there. And
Are you already talking to buyers?
Oh yeah, I always have buyers talking to me about CalCert.
Yeah.
I get calls all the time. So my number 1 buyer that I identified 15 years ago, it's a publicly owned company.
Yeah, that was $400 million company.
Yeah, no, that was a customer.
Oh,
This was a publicly owned company that does calibrations. I mean, they want to buy us, and I'm like, we're not ready.
I can't imagine somebody not a better acquisition target than you are, because how you've grown it and say, hey, look, man, you just saved us all this time and energy and stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some roll-up stuff going in at a higher level. The funny thing is, this public company, they started their roll-up strategy about the same time I started my roll-up strategy. But they did it with funding. I did it organically.
Yeah.
They're a lot bigger than us.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, what's your thought about that now? I mean, use another people's money.
I think I like the game, and it's I mean, I don't have to worry about money. I live the way I want to live. I buy what I want to buy. I do what I want to do, and maybe my palate for that is much different than others would be. I'm not a big money guy. I have nice cars and I have a nice home. I have a couple homes. We go to Cabo all the time, and been to Europe. I mean, I spent a month in Italy with my wife, a month in Australia. Well, 3 weeks.
Did you ever see I Can't Drive 55 guy down there in Cabo?
I did.
You did?
We went to his bar all the time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So-
Can I ask you a question about your management style? Because, and this is the point of why Roland talks about joining mastermind like War Room, because I'll talk to a lot of people about selling their business, and they took 5 years to build it to $2 million or 10 years to build it to $2 million. And when you're talking about going, hey, we can get you to 4 million or 6 million, in 6 months, they go, it breaks their head. How do you get the skills and acquire the skills to be able to see that, how to work above the business and grow it faster. Do it in 6 months, adding zero.
For me, I had to learn that the vast majority of the limiting factor of a business owner has nothing to do with the mechanics of the business, has everything to do with what's in here.
It's like looking in the mirror every morning. Yeah.
Exactly. It has everything to do with your mindset, what you think is possible, and then taking the action to make it possible. And the way that I've always had a pretty aggressive mindset, but the way that I really got my mindset straight was by getting into high level coaching stuff, by connecting to guys like Roland and really watching, listening, reading everything. I mean, my Audible, man, I could scroll here through the rest of your show and we wouldn't reach all the books that I've listened to.
Yeah.
And
how many books? Let me ask you a question. I buy about 3, sometimes 4 books a month on Amazon. How many?
I'm probably like 10 or 15.
10 or 15. So you just push me to push myself a little bit more.
It's whenever anybody recommends a book about something that interests me, while I'm talking to them, I buy it on.
I do the same thing. And I have to tell you, Carl Allen, he's been doing this for a while too. He's kind of a competitor, Roland, and he's probably worked on 300 deals and very large deals, like 50 billion and stuff. And I actually recommended a book that he's never read before.
Really?
And he bought it while I'm talking to him and he showed me the receipt. Yeah.
Well, just to swing back for a second on the mindset thing, and I always said, like, I surround myself with inspiring people that I can learn from. Like, I always want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I want to hang out with. I want to hang out with people that I can learn from. And I'm a talker. I like to talk, I'm a outward guy. But I had to learn how to listen more. I had to learn how to shut up and listen and take notes.
Is it shut up and listen or ask the right questions?
Well, I think it's both, actually. Yeah. I think it's both. But it's, I've had an opportunity to meet some pretty incredible people with the connections that I've made. It's, I think it's about your network. I think it's about your network. I think it's about the people you hang around with. I think it's about the mindset you're developing. Speaking of books, do you know Gay Hendricks' books, The Big Leap?
I've heard of it.
It's Gay Hendricks. It's called The Big Leap. He's got a second book out now. I don't remember the name of it, but if you have someone that's like struggling with mindset, he has a thing in his book called The Zone of Genius. And he says people live in their like their, what do they call it? Their zone of expertise, or they live in their, I can't remember the other terms lower down in the tier, but he's got this thing, zone of genius concept. And he's an old time professor. He's like in his 70s, something like that. And he says that most people live in their zone of expertise. Like, they get really good at something and they just keep doing that. But they're still doing an awful lot of things that aren't in that zone of genius. They're still doing a lot of this piddly stuff that are auxiliary to what they're doing, and they're not reaching their zone of genius. And your zone of genius is something that you can do without intention to do it. It just happens. You just do it. It's like your mastery. Like, rolling the zone of genius is how to structure deals on a company.
Without a doubt.
How to creatively see that and structure the deals on how to
and
put that
actually
together.
How to approach a seller on what that would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And and he probably knows Gay Hendricks. He probably knows of his book and stuff. But anyway, that's a book that really helped me get out of my shell a little bit, not socially, but business-wise, looking at this and saying, look, I'm this niche business and I could only grow it so much. And that book, along with a guy named Stuart Borey, who's a advisor for Pinnacle, or mentor, he was my business coach. He said to me, we talked about growing, and he said, how big is big? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, do you want to be 100 million? Do you want to be 500 million? Do you want to be $1 billion? Do you want to go public? Like, what do you want to do? I'm like, no, I don't want to go to public because I don't want to answer to any shareholders. I don't want to do the work to be that size because I don't want to answer to anybody else. I only want to answer to myself. So that's why I'm a self-investor.
Right.
I don't have any outside investors. And so, I mean, I use banks. But,
By the way, I just bought Gay Hendricks Big League Solar.
yeah, it's a good one. It'll help you and your listeners, with the mindset that's necessary to get past this. Because I'm telling you, I barely graduated from high school. And I figured this out.
Yeah. I tell everybody this. I said, look, I've done over 50 episodes of this, and the people that have bought over 5 or 10 businesses versus the people that bought 1 or 2, they talk about tactics and strategy. 10 or more, it's mindset.
It's always mindset. So I've got the welder company, I've got the calibration company, I've got the coaching company, I have a hotel, I have some commercial real estate, I have some residential real estate. I have we're looking at buying a bookkeeping firm right now. And the product sales, I've just got my first e-commerce product business. It's just fun.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this. Sometimes achieving the big leap, taking off to the next step, you have to take your foot off first base, which is subtraction of some things. How do you see those things that you need to extricate yourself from? Like, maybe it's limiting beliefs, maybe it's a bad habit, maybe it's a routine you have.
Well, I think early on, and it still affects me a little bit, is procrastination. Like, you can't procrastinate. Like, if you say, hey, like, you got friends, right? You run into friends, you haven't seen them in a month. You run them at the grocery store and like, hey, how's it going? It was great seeing you. We should get together sometime. And what do?
Don't talk to them.
You never get together, right?
Yeah.
So pull out your freaking calendar while you're standing there and go, let's put a date on the calendar right now. So I stopped procrastinating relationship building and started making it intentional. And I started being connected to more people. There's a guy I was good friends with in high school that I haven't talked to in 30 years, 35, 40 years. I don't know. I've been married 35 years. So, a long time. And he put a really funny post on Facebook the other day because he did some stand-up comedian training. And he said, hey, I can share it, but it's inappropriate. So I'll have to share it privately. So I said, yeah, share it. Haven't talked to this guy in years. We're going to go to dinner next week.
Yeah, good.
Because I'm intentional about it. I'm like, don't just say we should get together sometime. I want to get on your calendar. Let's grab lunch or let's grab dinner. I'll buy you dinner, I'll buy you lunch. Really enjoyed your comedy. You seem like a fun guy to hang around. Let's reconnect. We haven't seen each other since we were 16.
Yeah.
17. And so procrastination, I think people have a lot of good ideas. I'm one of those people. But if you don't execute on at least some of them, you'll never get anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was for me one thing. The other thing was you got to understand your strengths. You got to understand your weaknesses. And you got to start leaning on people that have strengths in areas you don't.
Yeah.
And so I've been successful in doing that, building teams. So we have about 104, 105 employees with all the companies, which isn't huge. I mean, compared to some of your guests, I mean, this is peanuts, right? But it's a life I love. It's a lot of fun. And I'm helping a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's anybody judging you saying, hey, you're not Elon Musk where I need to put Starlinks over the Ukraine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool though. But,
yeah.
But you understand who you are, you get into your zone of genius and you understand that you can help other people by getting them into their zone of genius and they can help you, then it works, And so I do a little business coaching through Pinnacle now. I got a handful of clients that I help. I still have clients with my SB coaching for acquisition stuff where that's kind of firing back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Although we don't really try. It's mostly referral based. My wife retired last Friday or Friday before last.
Well, great. Congratulations to her.
Yeah.
For actually asking you the most important question that started launch your career. What do you really want to do? Do you really want to be in a W-2? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my goal really was to just, and this is going to sound kind of funny, but I want to do what I want, when I want, with the people that I want for as long as I want to. And
Yeah.
that's it. And so it's I was at a he passed away now, but Sean Stevenson.
I
He's
don't.
he was a speaker trainer. He was born with a deformity and he was in a wheelchair, and his bones would break really easy. And you might have saw him on Facebook. He put the sticky notes up. He's one of the first guys that did that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was a phenomenal speaker trainer, just a phenomenal guy. And one of the things that he believed in is that he wanted to rid the world of rid the world of insecurity. And I thought that's really awesome that he's found such a big vision for that. And so he ended up doing it through speaker training, teaching people how to speak. So I went to several of his events. In fact, I went to his last event. He died not too long after his last event. So, and I thought, okay, I think I need to get in tune with what my vision is. And so I established a way of saying what my vision is, which is to help small business owners find joy and wealth.
Yeah. Now, do you think this was your vision from the beginning, and you just took away the marble for a statue of David to reveal itself?
I think it was my vision for that for myself, for
Yeah.
my family. And then it evolved to other families, evolved to other people. I think that's what ended up happening.
Yeah.
So,
And how has that affected your time, your people wanting more of your time to learn from you?
I have to be pretty guarded with my time. I have to make sure I'm working on the right things, but I'm connected to a lot of people, and a lot of people are connected to me. And I like to make sure that no matter what the interaction is, even if it's a small interaction at the gas station with the guy pumping your gas, which they still do here in Oregon,
Yeah, only
for a much higher price. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
But my goal is that, if I can make that person's day a little bit brighter, just by giving them the respect they deserve as a human being, then I do that.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of high on life a little bit. So
Love it. I love it.
just enjoy stuff. I don't let too much bother me. And, it's just a fun business to be in. Growing businesses is a fun business to be in. Obviously there's risk in doing that, but it's, I bought a company down in Anaheim. It's an industrial vacuum pump sales and rebuilding company called AVAC. And the owner wanted out. And
How did they find you? Was it on market, off market?
His best friend is brothers with one of the bookkeepers of a company I bought 5 years
Okay.
ago. Did you follow that?
Yeah.
So that's
It's a lead. You don't know where
Yeah.
these leads come from.
That's
Yeah.
how I found him. And then he's referred me to another company that wants to sell, that is in the gas apparatus stuff down in Huntington Beach, I think. And so I'll be meeting with them in a couple weeks just to
Yeah.
see what's up with them. But so, but when it comes to acquisitions, I've got 4 to 5 deals going right now. And I'm always working on some sort of relationship build or something for somebody. And I will feel like I've reached success. I have one particular company I've been wanting to buy for 23 years. 22 years.
Yeah. Who's that? It's somebody.
It's a good friend of mine that's in the calibration business, that I've known for years. I've become really good friends with him. In small companies, got 15, 16 employees. And we get together and have coffee or breakfast or whatever once a month. And he's just not ready to leave. He's in his 70s. And I want his company. And he knows I want his company.
Yeah.
And so some of my team, they're like, I won't mention his name, but they basically, have you guys had breakfast lately? You know, that kind of
If
stuff.
he changed his mind, anything
Yeah.
in life change, yeah.
Yeah, so it's but if you can help people find their way, you know, so big thing is retiring guys, or mostly guys, but retiring business owners that are in the $1 million, $1.5 million, maybe even $2 million range, gross revenue range. So, you know, their EBITDA, you know, is likely somewhere around, you know, 3 to 500,000, somewhere in that range, you know. That's kind of my target company size now. Multiples are, you know, averaging 3.5, you know, and sometimes 4, depending on what they've got. And as I roll these 3 industries up, the industrial repair industry, which is, we're starting with welders, the computer IT industry, which is an MSP industry, and then of course CalCert.
Yeah.
You know, if I can roll them all up, CalCert's already there, but if I can roll them all up, you know, to be in that VC range multiples, then
Yeah.
I think
I
that'd
mean,
be cool.
why would you want to leave? And I know we're really getting close because I'm already an hour, and I want to thank you so much for your time.
Oh yeah, no problem. So
I mean, but you know, look at Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. I mean, he's 89, 91, like still tap dancing to work.
yeah. Well, we had my wife's retirement party yesterday,
Yeah.
and somebody said, "When are you going to retire?" And almost everybody in the room said, "Never." Like
Perfect.
yelled it out.
Yeah.
They know me, and it's that same thing, right? Just control, you know, what you spend your time on. I'm 55 years old. I still have a lot of energy in me, but I'm working on making sure my daughter's locked in, making sure my son's locked in, you know, making sure that, you know, that the companies won't suffer if something happens to me. And so I'm confident that if I died tomorrow, which hopefully I don't, right? But if I died tomorrow, things would still operate. Now the acquisitions might not be happening as much as they are, but everybody would be in good shape.
Yeah. Because you're not really, I mean, you're building a business, but it's not really about building a business. You're building people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my you know, you talk about vision for a company or mission for a company. My mission for CalCert is to provide opportunities for innovative people to thrive and belong. And that's the vision for all the companies. Because if you can help people and make their life a little better, then you know, you don't have to worry about your life. So
That's right.
you know.
Well,
it'll be
Marshall,
fun. So
I got to be very respectful of your time because I keep these about an hour long. And I
yeah,
want
no problem. Yeah, we should wrap this up. So.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
this hour. I mean, this
no
is
problem.
perfect way to step into what you were doing and, you know, not close your eyes off of like what's happening right in front of you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. And I've been watching your shows. I'm not that far in, but I'm going to continue to catch up.
Yeah.
So, and I'll keep
Thank you so
following.
much. Yeah.
So, all right, man.
All right. Take
Have a
care.
great time.
You too.
Bye.